you know the similarity between us and all the great people that have been born till date? Yes. All of us have exactly the same number of 24 hours in a day. And the quality of your life will depend upon, first, what you concentrate on, and second, what is your power of concentration, what is your degree of concentration. So the first thing that you need to decide is what you want to concentrate on, where you want to take your life to. Even when you sit in an Ola or Uber, you exactly tell the driver, this is where I want to go. So why not about life? How can you just wandering away without knowing where you want to go in your life? And the second thing is to increase the power of concentration so that whatever limited time you have, you can make 100-fold use of the same time with your power of concentration. Make your power of concentration like a laser. How can you do it? Practice concentration the whole day. Whatever you're doing, put full concentration in that at that particular moment. And if you take care of these two things, if you know where you want to go exactly, and second, if you can increase your power of concentration, your life will be exactly where you want to be. Your life will be what you want it to be. So work on these things and you definitely will be limitless. So with that, we will start with a very, very important part of the year, and that is vestibular physiology. All the time, we know that our heart is beating, our circulatory system is working, our gastrointestinal system, our digestive, our renal system, everything is working, and we listen about it, we know about it very nicely all the time, we know it. But our balancing system, we never think about it unless and until it gets imbalanced and we realize how important it is. Yes, each and every second when we are sitting, when we are standing, when we are walking, when we are jogging, when we are running, the balancing system is utmost active. So what at all is the balancing system comprising of? Yes, so the balancing system, the sensory input is collected mainly from three areas: from the ears, that is the vestibular system, from the eyes, that is the vision, and from proprioception. So these three collect the input, the sensory input, and they have multiple interconnections between each other. They send it to the brain where there are multiple interconnections. Everything gets coordinated at the level of the center, at the level of the brain, and ultimately that helps to maintain our balance, our posture. So what exactly do you think the vestibular system does here in the balancing? The vestibular system fixes our gaze and it stabilizes our gait, it stabilizes our posture. Now that sounded so theoretical, right? Okay, now listen to this. Whenever we have to look at something, we will be able to have a clear image of that particular object only till the image of that object falls on our fovea. Which means that if we are moving our head, or if we are walking, or if we are jogging, when we are running, it is but obvious that that image will keep slipping off the fovea, coming to the fovea, again slipping off the fovea, which means that when our head is moving, our eyes are also moving, and that will lead to repeated slipping of the image, which will give us a blurred image whenever our head is moving, when we are walking, when we are jogging, when we are running, or when we are just sitting and moving our head. Does that happen? Do we get a blurred image of the surrounding whenever our head moves? No, that doesn't. Why? Because the movement of the head is sensed by the ear, the vestibular system, and that sends impulses to the eye through its connection with the eye, the vestibulo-ocular pathway, and it immediately resets the position of the eye so that the image that we are interested in keeps fixed, keeps falling on our fovea. For example, suppose I want to keep looking at you, but I want to turn my head towards the right. So if I turn my head towards the right, I can still continue looking at you. Why? What happened? Yes, this movement of my head was sensed by the vestibular system. And immediately it sent impulses to the eye through its vestibulo-ocular connections. And what happened? Yes, did my eyes move? The eyes moved, but in the opposite direction at the same pace at the movement of the head. So it moved with the movement of head, but in the opposite direction at the same pace, so that your image is kept fixed on my fovea and I can get your clear image constantly. Yes, so that is what we call as fixing the image of the object. And the second thing, what it does, it stabilizes a body posture. Now, you must have seen that whenever you are walking and you suddenly trip off, what happens? Yes, your hands outstretch to prevent your body from falling. So what happens there is that the ears, the vestibular system senses the movement of the head and movement of the body, and immediately it sends impulses through its connection of the vestibulospinal pathway, it sends impulses to the trunk and to the limb muscles to maintain our posture. So that is what the vestibular system does. It fixes our gaze and it stabilizes our gait and posture with respect to the surrounding. When I say that the vestibular system senses our head movement, what movement exactly is the vestibular system sensing? Yes, we already know that the vestibular system comprises of the 3 semicircular canals, yes, and the utricle and the saccule. All of them, do they sense the same movement? No, we know that for rotational acceleration, what do we have? Yes, very good. We have the semicircular canals. What inside the semicircular canals? Excellent, the cristae. Whereas for linear acceleration, what do we have? Yes, we have the maculae, which is present in the utricle and saccule. So which means that the rotation of the head will be sensed by the semicircular canals, whereas the linear movements will be sensed by the utricle and saccule. Okay, now tell me, do all rotations of a head are all rotations of the head sensed by all the semicircular canals together? No. So please understand this very nicely, that we have the 3 semicircular canals. What are their names? Can you tell me? Yes, they are the lateral semicircular canals, the superior, which is also known as the anterior semicircular canal, and the posterior semicircular canal. Why have they been named so? Yes, because they are in different planes. They are present in different planes. The 3 semicircular canals are present at right angles to each other, and they are present in different planes. The horizontal semicircular canal, as the name, is present horizontally. It is present in the horizontal plane. Now, it is not exactly horizontal. It is a little above the horizontal, 30 degrees above the horizontal. Whereas the vertical semicircular canals, which semicircular canals are called vertical? The superior and posterior are known as vertical semicircular canals. Why? Because they are placed in the vertical planes. The superior is also known as anterior. Why? Because it is placed in the vertical plane 45 degrees anterior to the sagittal plane, and the posterior is placed 45 degrees posterior. So these semicircular canals will sense the head rotation only in their particular plane. So does it mean that when our head is moving horizontally, both the horizontal semicircular canals are active all the time the head is moving horizontally? No, always remember that whenever I move my head to the right, my right vestibular system gets active. When I move my head towards the left, my left vestibular system gets active. Now, when we are looking straight, what happens is that both the vestibular systems are equally active. Now, when the head moves towards the right, now this is the patient in front of us. So this is the right side of the patient and this is the left side of the patient. So this patient is moving now the head towards the right. So her which vestibular system is getting activated now? Yes, the right vestibular system. Now, can you exactly tell me this is what movement of the head? Is this a horizontal or vertical movement of the head? Yes, this is a horizontal movement towards the right, which means that which semicircular canal is sensing this rotation of the head? Yes, very good. This will be sensed by the right horizontal semicircular canal. Okay, now you tell me this. Yes, in this now, which ear is active in this patient? First tell me the ear. Which ear? Yes, the left ear. And which semicircular canal is sensing this rotation? Yes, it is the left horizontal semicircular canal. Very good. Okay. Now here, what is this position of the head? Yes, the patient has turned the head towards the right. So which vestibular system will be active? The right vestibular system. Which semicircular canal exactly will sense this rotation of head? What is this rotation of head? This is towards the right and the head is in the anterior plane. So right anterior semicircular canal. Yes, right anterior. What is anterior semicircular canal? That is another name for superior semicircular canal. So anterior semicircular canal. Yes, now have a look at this. Yes, this is sensed by, this rotation is sensed by which ear? The right ear. Which semicircular canal? This is in which plane? This is in the right side, posterior plane. So right posterior semicircular canal. Yes, so I have told you this. Now you will tell me this. This is what? Yes, very good. Left. Which semicircular canal is sensing this movement? Yes, the left anterior or the superior semicircular canal. Yes, and this one is left posterior semicircular canal. Now, why exactly do we need to know this? Yes, we always say that the semicircular canal sense rotation of the a head movement, sense rotation of the head, and we feel that okay, that much is enough for us to know. No, that much is not enough. Now there is a condition which is known as positional vertigo. Positional vertigo is the most common cause of vertigo in the OPD. What happens in this condition is that there is otolith in the maculae. We already know that in the maculae there is otolith. Now this otolith, because of any reason, gets dislodged and it goes into any of the semicircular canal. It can go into the posterior semicircular canal, it can go into the lateral semicircular canal, and what it does there is that it irritates the semicircular canals and it leads to vertigo. But when will the patient have vertigo? Will the patient have vertigo in any movement? No. In whichever semicircular canal that otolith has gone into, that will irritate the semicircular canal, only when that particular semicircular canal is getting activated. Which means that if it has gone into the right horizontal semicircular canal, whenever the patient will move his head towards the right side horizontally, this will irritate the right horizontal semicircular canal if there is otolith present in it. And then that will lead to a very severe vertigo. So whenever a patient has come to us with a complaint of vertigo lasting for a very few seconds, with movement of head, with change in position of the head, we need to rule out positional vertigo. We will see what exactly positional vertigo is later on in great detail. For now, what we need to know is that when the patient has come to us with this complaint, our main concern is that yes, with the history, we have been able to find out that this is probably a positional vertigo, benign paroxysmal positional vertigo, BPPV. Now, we want to know exactly which semicircular canal it has gone into. So for testing which semicircular canal it has gone into, we need to know how we are going to stimulate that semicircular canal. And why do we need to know which semicircular canal it has gone into? Only when we know which semicircular canal it has gone into, we will be able to bring it back. So the management of the BPPV, which has been a repeated question, that is their place maneuver. I'm not telling you that now. What, again, as I told you, we'll do it later. But what we do there is that we reposition, we bring back the otolith from the canal back into the utricle. And since the semicircular canals are present in different planes, they will have to be brought back by different movements of the head. The maneuvers to bring back the otolith back into the utricle is by positioning the head in different positions. So the maneuver is different for each semicircular canal, which means that we exactly need to know which semicircular canal it has gone into. Yes. So now tell me, if I am testing like this, if I have this patient of BPPV, if I have turned the head like this, what exactly am I testing? What is this rotation of the head? Yes, this is which side? Yes, this is the right side, and which semicircular canal is getting activated in this rotation? Yes, the right horizontal semicircular canal. So if in the right horizontal semicircular canal there is otolith in this position, it will irritate it and patient will have very severe vertigo. Yes, also now see this. Now I am testing which semicircular canal? Yes, now I am seeing for the presence of otolith in which semicircular canal? The left horizontal semicircular canal. Excellent. Now when you know all this very clearly from the basic, from the concepts, you don't have to ratify that, okay, for horizontal semicircular canal, I will have to place the patient lie down straight and then I will have to do this. And for the posterior semicircular canal, this is what I have to do. You know it so clearly. Yes. So now tell me this. I will not tell you this. You tell me this if you have understood it. Yes. Now, what is this position? The patient's head is towards the right. And what is it? Anterior, posterior? Yes, the posterior. So which semicircular canal am I testing now? Yes, I am testing the posterior semicircular canal. Yes, and posterior semicircular canal is the most common canal where otolith goes. So this is the position that you will see whenever you are testing for any otolith or you are testing for a positional vertigo. Otolith in the posterior semicircular canal, this is the position that you place the patient in. If there is otolith in the posterior semicircular canal, the moment you place the patient in this position, it will irritate the semicircular canal and patient will have very severe vertigo. So is that very clear? So what we know till now is that how many semicircular canals we have? Yes, 3. They are in different planes. Which 3 planes? The horizontal is in the lateral, or the horizontal is in the horizontal plane. The vertical, which are the vertical? Superior and posterior. They are in which plane? In vertical plane. Which one is 45 degrees anterior? The anterior semicircular canal. Which one is 45 degrees posterior? The posterior semicircular canal with respect to the vertical plane. And in which movements they are getting stimulated. Now also we know that. So right labyrinth gets stimulated when the head moves towards which side? Right side. Right anterior is anterior semicircular canal, right posterior is posterior semicircular canal, right horizontal is right horizontal semicircular canal. So what exactly is happening inside the semicircular canals during movement of the head, during head rotations, that they are getting stimulated in these particular planes? What is happening inside? Now we know the physiology of hearing very nicely. We know that whenever the sound goes through the tympanic membrane, through the ossicular chain, through the footplate of stapes in the inner ear, what happens is, yes, there is opposite movement at the oval and the round window. There is opposite movement at the scala vestibula and the scala tympani. That leads to shearing action at the level of the scala media, that is the basilar membrane, on which is present the organ of Corti. And this movement, this opposite movement, leads to movement of the hair cells, and that leads to release of neurotransmitters, which is transmitted by the cochlear nerve. Now what happens here that stimulates the cristae? Yes, how movement of head is stimulating it? Let us quickly see that. Now whenever our head moves to one side, now suppose this is the labyrinth of that patient whom we saw just some time back. So in this, suppose the patient is turning the head to the left. Okay, now what happens when the patient is turning to the head to the left? The bony labyrinth is embedded inside the skull. So the bony labyrinth will also move towards the left with movement of head. But in the membranous labyrinth, what we have it is the endolymph. Because of inertia, the endolymph lags behind and it moves initially in the opposite direction as the movement of the head. What is all this? Yes, you must have noticed this so commonly. If suppose you are sitting on a bike behind and the rider immediately starts the bike, what happens? Yes, the bike moves forward, but you, because of inertia, first go back. Yes, so the similar thing happens here, that with the movement of the head, the bony labyrinth moves. But because of inertia, the endolymph lags behind and it moves behind. Now, when it moves back, it exerts a pressure on the cupula. What is cupula? Yes, we know that at the ends of the semicircular canal, at one of the ends, there are dilated ends which are known as cupula. And inside the cupula, we have the sensory end organ of rotation, balance for rotation. That is what is known as cristae. In the cristae, we have hair cells. We know that, yes. So now what will happen is the endolymph will exert pressure on the cupula. It will lead to deflection of cupula. And this deflection of cupula will lead to deflection of the hair cells of the cristae, stimulating them. Have a look at this. Yes, this is exactly how inside the cupula, the hair cells of the cristae are present. So in the cristae hair cells, there are stereocilia present. They are arranged in the ascending order of their height. The longest is the longest stereocilia, or we can call it the kinocilium. And when all these cilia move towards, because of the shearing action, because of the deflection of the cupula, when they move towards the kinocilium, that leads to activation of the cristae, that leads to release of the neurotransmitters. Yes. So what happens at rest? At rest, both the vestibular system are giving the same. They are equally active. Yes. For example, suppose 90 spikes per minute. Now, when the head is moved towards one side in that particular labyrinth, because of opposite movement of the endolymph, the cilia move towards the longest stereocilia, and that leads to stimulation. That leads to, yes, release of neurotransmitters. Whereas in the opposite labyrinth, which is not activated at this moment, what will happen is all these cilia will move away from the longest stereocilia, from the kinocilium, and that will lead to decrease of discharge from that particular labyrinth. Now here is a question that is asked in your exams. Yes, so what we are seeing now is, now we already know that which movements of the head, which rotation of the head is sensed by which semicircular canals. What we are seeing now is what exactly is happening inside the semicircular canal, which is leading to stimulation of that particular semicircular canal, which is leading to stimulation of that particular cristae, hair cells of the cristae. So yes, this is a question that is asked in your exam, that which flow of endolymph is stimulatory in the horizontal semicircular canal, which flow of endolymph is stimulatory in the vertical canals. Okay, now let me just read this out. Ampulopetal endolymphatic flow produces stronger response, which means it is stimulatory, and than ampulofugal flow in the horizontal canal. Ampulofugal flow produces a stronger response than ampulopetal flow in the vertical canals, that is superior and posterior semicircular canal. Did you understand even a word of it? No? Now when I show you what exactly this means, this will become a reflex for you. Yes? So please pay attention. This is something that is asked in your exam, and when it is asked, you get so baffled. My God, what is this? Yes, so yes, just see here. The arrangement of the hair cells inside the horizontal and the vertical canals is different. Very simple. Just pay a little attention here. Yes? So just notice here that in the horizontal canal, okay, so this is the horizontal canal. In the horizontal canal, the cilia are placed such that the kinocilium, the longest, is towards the utricle. I can mark it like this. The longest is towards the utricle. Yes, so this is the utricle here. Which means that whenever all the stereocilia will move towards the kinocilium, towards the longest, yes, only then will be the stimulation. Which means that in the horizontal semicircular canal, when the endolymph moves towards the utricle, that will lead to all the hair cells moving towards the kinocilium. That will lead to stimulation of the horizontal semicircular canal. Yes or no? Yes, so I can say that in the horizontal semicircular canal, a movement of the endolymph towards the utricle is stimulatory, because all the time you need not remember that the hair cells are placed like that, the kinocilium is here, the rest of the stereocilia are like that. Yes, so you just need to remember that whenever the endolymph in the horizontal semicircular canal moves towards the utricle, that is stimulatory. And the reason you know inside that, because the hair cells are placed like that, that the longest, that is the kinocilium, is placed towards the utricle. So a movement of endolymph towards the utricle will be stimulatory in the horizontal semicircular canal. Is that very clear? So this movement of the endolymph towards the utricle we can call as utriculopetal. Petal means towards. Yes, since the ampullae is present towards the utricle, yes, I can also call it ampulopetal. Ampulopetal. Is that clear? Yes. So in other words, when I say that the right movement towards the right stimulates which semicircular canal? Quickly tell me which labyrinth first. Yes. So this movement of my head towards the right, this is stimulating which ear? The right labyrinth. Which semicircular canal? The right horizontal semicircular canal. So in my right horizontal semicircular canal, which is getting stimulated, what movement of endolymph is occurring? Yes, so for stimulation means in the horizontal semicircular canal, it is a utriculopetal or a ampulopetal movement of the endolymph. Is that clear? It is not difficult at all. Yes. And just remember, the horizontal semicircular canal is close to the ground. So a petal movement is stimulatory. Is that clear? Whereas, just notice in the vertical canals. Just see, in the vertical canals, let us take one canal at a time. In the superior semicircular canal, can you see that the arrangement of the cilia is just opposite of the horizontal semicircular canal? The longest, that is the kinocilium, is placed away from the utricle, which means now a movement of the endolymph which is away from the utricle. Away from the utricle will make all the cilia move towards the kinocilia, and that is what is stimulatory. Yes, so which means that in the superior semicircular canal, a movement of endolymph away from the utricle or away from the ampullae, that is a ampulofugal or a utriculofugal movement, is stimulatory. Yes, so in the superior semicircular canal or the anterior semicircular canal, a utriculo or a ampulofugal movement of endolymph. Movement of endolymph will make all the hair cells move towards the kinocilium. In short, I can say is stimulatory. Ampulofugal movement is stimulatory. Same for the posterior semicircular canal. See the arrangement of the kinocilium and the stereocilia in the superior and the posterior semicircular canal. They are same. They are same. They are same means that the longest, the kinocilium is placed away from the utricle. Can you see? It is placed away from the utricle. So what movement of endolymph here will be stimulatory? Ampulofugal or a utriculofugal movement of endolymph. So same in the anterior as well as in the posterior semicircular canal, the same thing happens. Yes. So as I told you, how are you going to remember it? Which semicircular canal is close to the ground? Remember it like that. Which is close to the ground? Which is pedal to the ground? Horizontal. So what will be stimulatory in horizontal? A pedal movement. What is away from the ground? The vertical canals. So what is fugal from the ground? Vertical canals. So what are the vertical canals? The superior and the posterior, or we can call it anterior and the posterior. So what movement of endolymph in the anterior and the posterior semicircular canal is stimulatory? They are fugal. So it is fugal movement of the endolymph. Is that very, very clear? So can you tell me which ear this is? Yes, this is the right ear. This is the, how can I say that this is the right ear? I have shown you so many times. Yes, that I have told you so many times also that the semicircular canals, they are present posteriorly. Yes, do we see their projections in the mastoid, through the mastoid also? Yes, we see their projections on the medial wall of the mastoid. So here, suppose is the mastoid. So that is the posterior part. So this will be the anterior part. So this will be the face part, right? So which means that this is the right semicircular canal. Now what will happen in the left semicircular canal? Yes, so this here is the left semicircular canal. Yes, in the left what will happen? Left ear. Yes, here this is posterior. This is anterior. So this is the face. This is anterior. So this is the face. So same. Yes, horizontal semicircular canal. How is the arrangement of the hair cells? Yes, it is what movement of endolymph is stimulated? A utriculopetal. Whereas in the vertical canals, what movement of endolymph is stimulated? Utriculofugal. Is that clear? This will be utriculopetal. Is that very clear? So this is how we are going to remember that utriculopetal is close to the ground. Yes, so which semicircular canal is close to the ground? Horizontal semicircular canal. Utriculopetal movement will be stimulatory in horizontal semicircular canal. Utriculofugal is away. So what will be, in which semicircular canals utriculofugal movement will be stimulatory? The posterior semicircular canal and the anterior or the superior semicircular canal. Okay, so now keep your pens down and look straight. Yes. Now you are going to tell me whatever I am asking you. Yes. Okay. So now tell me in this patient, which ear is active? Which vestibular system is active now? Yes, the right vestibular system. Which semicircular canal? Horizontal semicircular canal. What movement is occurring in the horizontal semicircular canal in the right ear in this patient now? Yes, utriculopetal. Very good. Yes, in this patient. Which ear is active? The left. Which semicircular canal? Left. Anterior semicircular canal. Yes, in the left anterior semicircular canal in this patient, what movement of the endolymph is occurring at this moment? Utriculofugal movement. Yes, in this patient. Yes, left. Which semicircular canal? Posterior semicircular canal. What movement of endolymph is occurring in the posterior semicircular canal now? Yes, the fugal movement again. So now let us have a look at this, what this evolved second and third law was, and let us see whether it makes sense or not. Yes, these are the questions that you have been sending me repeatedly. That is why I thought of covering it here itself. Maybe it is covered in your physiology also, but that is why I am covering it here so that you understand it very clearly and you have no doubts in it. Yes. So now let us see ampulopetal endolymph flow. Ampulopetal endolymphatic flow produces a stronger response, that is stimulatory, and than ampulofugal in the horizontal. Yes, what this means is that ampulopetal endolymphatic flow in the horizontal canal is stimulatory. Ampulofugal flow produces stronger response than ampulopetal in the vertical canals. So ampulofugal flow of endolymph in the vertical canals, that is the superior and posterior, is stimulatory. That is it that this line tells you. So now what we know is in whichever movement of the head, which semicircular canal is getting stimulated first, which ear is getting stimulated, which rotation exactly is sensed by which semicircular canal. When that semicircular canal is getting stimulated, what movement is occurring inside the semicircular canal, what movement of endolymph is occurring, that is leading to stimulation. We know that, yes. So we know all that very clearly. Now, what is responsible for the linear acceleration? We just saw about the head rotations, the rotational acceleration, yes. So what senses the linear acceleration? Yes, that is the maculae. Where is maculae present? In the utricle and saccule. So in the utricle and saccule, in the maculae, do we know that there is otolith? Yes, they are calcium carbonate crystals which are present on the top of the hair cells. We know that, yes. So now what happens because of linear acceleration? When the patient is moving straight, just see here, because of gravity, the otolith, which is the calcium carbonate crystals, that moves, and that makes the hair cells, that creates a shearing action on the hair cells to make it move either towards the kinocilium or away from the kinocilium, hence either increasing the discharge rate of discharge or decreasing the rate of discharge. Yes, so this is how it senses the linear acceleration. Now you must be thinking, okay, linear acceleration is both when we are walking straight, walking back, or the car is going in front straight or back, yes, but it is also when we go in the lift. Yes, so how in the lift the otolith will be able to move the hair cells? Yes, so how a vertical linear acceleration stimulates? Yes, so for that, the maculae of the utricle and saccule are not placed in the same plane. Yes, this what I'm telling you now. You need not remember this which is placed in which plane, but this is just for your understanding. Yes, that the maculae of the utricle is present in the horizontal plane, whereas of the saccule is present in the vertical plane. Is that clear? So a horizontal movement will deflect the otolith is of the maculae of the utricle, whereas a vertical movement will deflect the otolith of the maculae of the saccule. So saccule, when you're going in the lift, which part of your vestibular system is active? Yes, the saccule. You never know, maybe a question is asked from this, but yes, we need to understand it from the basics and completely. So now we know what movements, what rotations and what linear acceleration stimulate which part of the inner ear. Now this is crystal clear to us. Now what happens whenever the cristae and the maculae, they get stimulated of whichever ear. Yes, so now what happens is they send impulses through the nerves. What are these nerves known as? They are known as the vestibular nerves. So yes, how many vestibular nerves do we have? One or two? Yes, we have two vestibular nerves, superior and inferior vestibular nerve. The inferior vestibular nerve, remember, it supplies the inferior part because that is named inferior. So what is the inferior part? Inferior part is the saccule. Yes, and also a branch of the inferior vestibular nerve, which is known as cingular nerve, that supplies the posterior semicircular canal. So is that clear? The saccule and the posterior semicircular canal, this is supplied by the cingular nerve, cingular branch of inferior vestibular nerve. They join to form the inferior vestibular nerve, whereas from rest of the areas, what do I mean by rest of the areas? The superior semicircular canal, the lateral semicircular canal, and from the utricle, the nerves, they fuse to form the superior vestibular nerve. Now both these nerves, they go to the Scarpa's ganglion. Scarpa's ganglion. So what is Scarpa's ganglion? Yes, this is a question of your exam. What is Scarpa's ganglion? It is the vestibular nerve ganglion. Vestibular nerve ganglion. Now after passing through the Scarpa's ganglion, they now exit the inner ear. They have to exit the inner ear. They will exit through which foramen? We already know that. Yes, the internal acoustic meatus. So they will exit the internal acoustic meatus as separate nerves. As superior and inferior vestibular nerves. When they exit, now they go to the vestibular nuclei. To the vestibular nuclei. Now from the vestibular nuclei are the various interconnections of the vestibular system to the eye, which is known as the vestibulo-ocular pathway. So what this does is, with movement of the heads, which is sensed by the vestibular system, these impulses are sent to the eye to keep the object of interest on the fovea, which means to fix the vision on the desired object, to fix our gaze. So this will fix our gaze. And to fix our gaze, like as I told you, as I showed you, that I want to fix my gaze on you, but at the same time I want to move my head to the right. So now what I do is, as I move my head to the right, what happens? I can still keep you on my fovea. How can I do that? Yes, because my vestibular system of the right side has sensed this movement, sent impulses to the eyes, and my eyes have moved at an equal fast pace as the head, so that my eyes are fixed on you. And this reflex is what is known as vestibulo-ocular reflex, or VOR. VOR, or vestibulo-ocular reflex. Yes, this is what is the VOR, vestibulo-ocular reflex, when the patient is looking towards the right, and again the vestibulo-ocular reflex when the patient is looking towards the left. So if there is any abnormality of this pathway of the vestibulo-ocular reflex, that can tell us that there is an abnormality of the vestibular system. The vestibular system is not able to sense the movement of the head properly and not able to send the impulses appropriately to the eye. That is why the eye is not able to fix the gaze on the particular desired object. Yes, so to test the vestibular system, we test the vestibulo-ocular reflex. Any abnormality will lead to abnormality of the vestibulo-ocular reflex. Also from the vestibular nuclei, the impulses go to the limb and trunk muscles. And this is through the vestibulo-spinal pathway. So which means that we can also test the vestibulospinal pathway and come to know an abnormality of the vestibular system. Now very, very important is that at the level of the vestibular nuclei, where is the vestibular nuclei present? Yes, it is present in the brainstem along with the rest of the cranial nerve nuclei. So at the level of the vestibular nuclei are multiple to and fro connections with the center, mainly with the cerebellum and the cortex. Main is the cerebellum here, and some interconnections with the cortex also, which ultimately coordinate all this. So we know that the input of the sensory system, we saw that earlier, it comes from the three areas: the ear, the vision, and the proprioception. What ear does, how it senses the movement and how it maintains our posture, we have just seen. And ultimately, through the vestibular system, the motor output goes through the vestibulo-ocular and through the vestibulospinal system to our eyes and to our limb and body muscles, neck muscles, our trunk muscles, our limb muscles, to maintain our gaze and to maintain our gait, to stabilize our posture with respect to the surrounding. It maintains our gaze. It is responsible for gait stability. It is also responsible for spatial orientation with respect to our surrounding. So now you are going to keep your pens down. Yes, sit straight. Very good. Yes. So now ready? Very good. How many semicircular canals do we have? 3 semicircular canals. Yes, which semicircular canal senses the head rotation in the right horizontal plane? Right horizontal semicircular canal. In the left vertical anterior plane. Yes, left anterior semicircular canal. In the left vertical posterior plane. Left posterior semicircular canal. When the right horizontal semicircular canal is active, what movement of endolymph is occurring in the right horizontal semicircular canal? Ampulopetal or ampulofugal? Ampulopetal. Okay, what movement is occurring when the left vertical semicircular canal is active? Ampulopetal or ampulofugal? What movement of endolymph? Yes, ampulofugal. Yes, which nerves carry the sensation from the superior semicircular canal? From the superior semicircular canal? Yes, the superior vestibular nerve. Inferior vestibular nerve carries sensation from saccule. Yes, saccule and posterior semicircular canal. Yes, can you tell me that if there is any abnormality of the vestibulo-ocular reflex, Does that tell you about an abnormality of the vestibular system? Yes, the vestibular ocular reflex, if it is normal, it means that the complete pathway is normal. Any abnormality of the vestibular system will lead to an abnormality of the vestibular ocular reflex. The vestibular spinal reflex abnormality will also tell you about the abnormality of the vestibular spinal pathway, which is responsible for linear acceleration in the horizontal. Yes, straight linear acceleration in the horizontal plane. Yes, that is maculae of utricle, and macula of the saccule, that is for linear acceleration in the vertical plane. Okay, so when we know this, we can very easily decipher the first law of Ewald. We already have seen the second and third law. Yes, the second and third was the horizontal and the vertical canal, ampulopetal and ampulofugal flow, that is stimulatory respectively. So that brings us to the first law of Ewald's, or first Ewald's law. What is that? Yes, whenever there is any abnormality of the vestibular ocular pathway, that leads to an abnormal movement of the eye, abnormal oscillatory movement of the eye, which we call as nystagmus. So with movement of the head, the eyes will not move appropriately. There will be abnormal oscillatory movement of the eye, which is known as nystagmus, and the plane of the nystagmus will be in the plane of the particular semicircular canal which is involved, which is irritated. For example, in this patient, we are testing which semicircular canal? Yes, the right horizontal semicircular canal. If there is otolith in the right horizontal semicircular canal, the nystagmus, the abnormal movement of the eye, will be in the plane of horizontal semicircular canal, which means this patient will have a horizontal nystagmus. Whereas, which semicircular canal is this? Yes, this is the right posterior semicircular canal that we are testing. If there is otolith inside the right posterior semicircular canal, the posterior semicircular canal is in vertical plane. So nystagmus here will be vertical. Is that clear? Yes, it will be vertical. It will be vertical. So the plane of nystagmus is exactly in the plane of the semicircular canal that is stimulated. The axis of nystagmus parallel to the anatomic axis of the semicircular canal that generated it. Yes, which means that for when horizontal semicircular canal generates abnormality, the nystagmus will be horizontal. When vertical semicircular canal generates abnormality, the nystagmus will be vertical. So for horizontal semicircular canal, nystagmus is horizontal, and for vertical is anterior and posterior semicircular canal. The nystagmus is vertical. And always remember, whenever it is because of the ear, a vestibular system, nystagmus is never plain horizontal, pure horizontal or pure vertical. It also has the torsional component. With torsional component, because the movement of the eye muscles have the capacity of intorsion and extorsion also. So there is always torsional component also. Yes, this we will see in the next module. For now, just that we have seen all the planes of the semicircular canals. Yes, we are doing it here itself. So now if I ask you, do you know the semicircular canals are in which plane? Yes or no? Yes, they sense which movement? Yes, if there is abnormality of which semicircular canal, the nystagmus will be horizontal semicircular canal. In abnormality of which semicircular canal, the nystagmus will be vertical semicircular canals, the anterior and the posterior. Do we know what is happening inside the semicircular canals? Yes, what movement of endolymph? Yes, very good. Do we know what is happening when we move straight in linear acceleration, anteriorly, posteriorly, up and down? Yes or no? Yes, so that is what constitutes the vestibular physiology. And when all this is happening, how ultimately the output is going to the eyes and to our body muscles to maintain our posture. Have you understood that? So that is how the vestibular system helps in maintaining our balance. So now whichever question is asked from this part, right, left, top, down, everywhere, you will be able to answer it. And yes, we have done it very, very slowly, step by step, because I have seen that you get a little confused. The moment I go fast, you get confused. And this is something which is very, very important for you to understand. Only then you will be able to remember. Nahi to believe me, you will never be able to remember this. Yes. So as I've always told you, details matter, and it is worth spending time to get it right, because once it is right, now any person you see moving the head to the right, to the left, moving straight, moving back, immediately you know in a flash of a second which semicircular canal, what inside the semicircular canal, movement of the eye through which pathway, movement of the body through which pathway. Yes. So now you can just do your questions.